Our government debt has reached a new milestone, and the Congressional Budget Office has come out with their 30-year debt and government spending projection. That's not good news either. Guys, are we facing a permanent shift? Have we crossed the point of no return? I've got some perspective coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. I think we're on the precipice of a permanent shift in capitalism in our country's finances. And I'm talking about the U.S. here, but ultimately you could say the same thing applies for most other developed countries. If you weren't aware, check out the U.S. debt clock here. We've hit national debt, U.S. debt, over $28 trillion. Look at those numbers just continue to run here. That is unbelievable. Go to that website if you want to start your day on a depressing note. It actually breaks down and even tells you how much debt per citizen, total debt to GDP, all sorts of things. But guys, it is just staggering the amount of debt that we're accumulating. Also, take a look here at the trend going back from the 80s and 90s. I mean, the amount of debt that we have today is unbelievable, and how quickly it is rising. Just in the past few years, we've gone from 15 trillion up to 28 trillion. All right, so is this a problem? Well, before we can actually understand if this is a problem, we need to know where are we going. And so not only is it sort of discouraging and worrisome that, gosh, that is now 28 trillion. Well, let's put that in context. That is 102% of our GDP, which means the output every single year of our economy. We now have more debt than what that actually produces every single year, 102%. And this year specifically, check out this chart here of our government finances. This year specifically, we're gonna spend $2.2 trillion more than we bring in, more than our government brings in tax revenue. That's a staggering amount. So if we're at 28 trillion in debt right now, the baseline budget forecast, which by the way never turn out to be that good, so it likely will be worse, we'll go from 28 to 30 just based on the baseline budget. But as you know, we're gonna pass and approve a $1.9 trillion stimulus at some point any day now. So that would move us to 32 trillion by the end of the year. And everyone's already talking about the next stimulus plan after this one. And if that's another trillion or 2 trillion, guys, we could likely finish 2021 with 32 to 33 to 34 trillion dollars of debt. Yeah, that's a bad trajectory. But if you say, Mike, don't worry about it, this is a pandemic, we've got to spend to get through this, then you're really not going to like this news. The Congressional Budget Office came out last week with their 30-year projection of where we're going, what tracks we're on from a overall government spending and government debt level. And their projections, I will tell you, historically, reality turns out to be worse. Reality turns out to mean the government actually spends more than what they forecast, okay? But their forecast is quite alarming. Their forecast says right now, in 2021, government spending equates to about 21% of the GDP of our overall economic output. 30 years from now, 2051, they're expecting that will be 31%. So what they're saying is there is going to be more and more reliance on our economy from our government spending. Okay, that's alarming to me. Almost a third of the spending will come from government. That's alarming. But here's the real kicker. The government debt, or excuse me, the total national debt will go from 102% of our GDP right now to between 202% and 260% of our GDP over 30 years from now. So guys, if I were to give you an analogy, we're not driving, a car down a highway that's on that track. Okay, that we can just, if we don't like where we're going, we can just quickly make a turn or do a U-turn, right, and turn around and go back. Those are the train tracks we're on. There's no quick turn here. When you're spending that much money, there's no real ability to just stop it and shut it off. And there's enough inertia here. We can't just turn and pivot and navigate. We're not nimble. These are the train tracks that our country's government is on. So now, before I get to how do you apply this? What does this mean to you, other than maybe pick out the country you want to move to? But guys, guess what? They're all in this shape. Before I get to how it applies to you, so here's the thing. I mean, if these are the train tracks we're on, then really where are we going? And not just with numbers, but in life, where are we going? Well, I see three potential outcomes. Number one, the government just stops spending, okay? And they pull, if again, the train analogy, they just pull on the brake and it screeches to a halt and the government just stops spending. We make some huge spending adjustments. I do not see that happening, but that is possible. The reason I don't see it happening is Democrats don't appear to be very interested in that, and Republicans, who are apparently fiscally conservative, do not appear to be fiscally conservative at all. So both parties, there's no political will to slow down the spending. And then second, like I just mentioned, government spending is accounting for more and more and more of our overall economic output. If we just stop, that will have massive economic consequences. Massive, okay? So the amount of borrowing and the government debt is so big that some slight reduction, some little adjustment, some whatever, isn't going to do it. There need to be a big cosmic shift to stop the spending, and that's not going to happen, okay? So that's one option, okay? The second option is maybe this doesn't really matter. Maybe we shouldn't even worry. Maybe the amount of government debt is inconsequential, and we don't need to worry about it. It's not actually a problem. I think that would be dangerous thinking, because if we are borrowing this much money, someone's got to lend it to us. And our lenders are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer at these interest rates, and therefore the really only lender is the Federal Reserve, which is potentially this death loop, because obviously they're a separate party from the government, but they're acting more and more like our government. And so that could be a death loop that then means the whole thing just sort of implodes. So I guess the second reality of this is, well, it doesn't really matter. There is no problem here. I would argue against that. And so then the third potential reality is that this does matter, and the government can't and won't just stop spending. And therefore, and we reach that death loop where no one will lend us money, and so there is a cosmic sonic boom, some sort of huge adjustment. They're calling it possibly the Great Reset. There's been lots of discussions about, do you just blanket forgive or erase all of this debt, and what would the consequences be on pension plans and state governments and foreign governments and all sorts of things. But there would be some sort of huge cosmic permanent adjustment to capitalism and our country's finances that would have repercussions that we can't even really fathom right now. That seems like the third option. I don't know. I don't see our government just stopping spending. To me, I see this having some consequences at some point, whether it's 30 years or 25 or 35 or 50. These are the train tracks we're on. So at some point, the debt is likely going to get to a level that is going to be problematic, I think. Therefore, that third option seems like the most likely. And it's hard to even fathom what those consequences would be. So what does this mean? Is this just a scare tactic? Is this something that you should just stay up and worry about? I wouldn't stay up and worry about it, and I don't think it's just a scare tactic either. To me, this is actionable. How? make sure your finances are in order, okay? If we do see a cosmic shift, a sonic boom, a great reset, an enormous adjustment to financially life as we know it, make sure you're ready. That is not the time to be over leveraged. That is not the time to be overspending. That is not the time to have been taking this huge financial risk, okay? So make sure your financial house is in order so that you're prepared for whatever future may come about. What does that mean? Making sure that you have a plan to pay off your consumer debt if you're not already debt free. Make sure that you don't have more mortgage than you can afford. Make sure you've got enough equity in your house. Make sure you've got an emergency fund that's fully funded and you haven't borrowed against it. Make sure you've got a delayed spending where you're saving up for known future expenses like car repairs or the next vehicle or vacation, so you're not putting that on debt and doing a cycle using short-term financing and then paying it off. Make sure that you've got a budget that allows for margin in your financial life. That's right, I mean, actually choose to spend less than you're earning. And then so you've got margin in case there's a big adjustment. And then that margin right now where it's realized, saving that you're saving appropriately for your long-term goals. So those are the sorts of things. Those are the exact sorts of things you work with your certified financial planner on. So this is not a scare tactic to me. It's just coincidental that we hit the 28 trillion mark. We're about to pass another 1.9 trillion. We are spending an extra 2.2 trillion this year than we actually have. And the Congressional Budget Office basically came out and said, we are on train tracks here. We can't turn this thing around. We are headed straight towards an exponential increase in the amount of debt that we're taking on as a country. And so to me, these are just warning signs. Take appropriate steps in your personal financial life so that you're ready for whatever the outcome is. Work with your certified financial planner on that, having them help you with all 6 areas of your financial life, making great decisions using financial wisdom. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with a K, wisemoneyshow.com, or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.